Okay, so we are covering incident reporting. We covered significant changes. Now we're going to cover incident reporting, and I'm going to stress to you that with regard to significant changes or any of these situations, you need to check with your specific facility that you work for, their policies, their procedures with regard to significant changes. When do they want to categorize something as that? And also their own procedures for incident reporting. But I'm going to cover the state guidelines for incident reporting. And basically, you have two types of incident reports. You have your regular incident, right, where somebody needed some sort of medical attention, and then you have an adverse incident. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to determine what is this incident an adverse incident? And if it's an adverse incident, then you need to follow the guidelines for an adverse incident report. And they have strict reporting guidelines as far as when you have to report those things to the state. So let's go ahead and go over that. This is the Florida Statutes 429. And every facility licensed under this part voluntarily establish a risk management and quality assurance program, the purpose of which is to assess resident care practices, facility incident reports, deficiencies cited by the agency, adverse incidents, and resident grievances, and develop a plan of action to correct and respond quickly to identify quality differences. So your facility has its own policies and procedures. That's what that's describing there, that your facility has to have a policy. So please, to complete the training, you're going to reference that. Every facility licensed under this chapter is required to maintain adverse incident reports. And this is what an adverse incident is. An event over which facility personnel could exercise control rather than as a result of the resident's condition and results in. Okay, so something that the facility could have prevented, and it results in the following: death, brain or spinal damage, permanent disfigurement, fracture or dislocation of bones or joints, any condition that required medical attention to which the resident has not given his or her consent, including failure to honor advance directives. Any condition that requires the transfer of the resident from the facility to a unit providing more acute care due to the incident rather than the incident's condition, the resident's condition before the incident. Or, number 7, an event that is reported to law enforcement or its personnel for investigation, or a resident elopement, if the elopement places the resident at risk of harm or injury. Licensed facilities shall provide within 1 business day after the occurrence of the adverse incident incident by electronic mail, facsimile, or United States mail, a preliminary report to the agency on adverse incidents specified under this section. The report must include the information regarding the identity of the affected resident, the type of adverse incident, and the status of the facility's investigation of the incident. Licensed facilities shall provide within 15 days by electronic mail. I think you have to do it all online, so it's all reported online for adverse incidents. The report must include the results of the facility's investigation into the adverse incident. Each facility shall report monthly to the agency any liability claims filed against it. The report must include the name of the resident, the dates of the incident leading to the claim, if applicable, and the type of injury or violation of rights alleged to have occurred. This report is not discoverable in any civil or administrative action except in such actions brought by the agency to enforce the provisions of this part. Number 6, abuse, neglect, or exploitation must be reported to the Department of Children and Families as required under Chapter 415. This information reported to the agency pursuant to subsection 3, which relates to persons licensed under 458, 459, 461, 464, and 465 shall be reviewed by the agency. The agency shall determine whether any of the incidents potentially involve conduct by a healthcare professional who is subject to disciplinary action, in which case provisions of subchapter 456.073 apply. The agency may investigate as it deems appropriate any such incident and prescribe measures that must be taken in response to the incident. The agency shall review each incident and determine whether it potentially involved conduct by a healthcare professional who is subject to disciplinary action. If the agency, through its receipt of the adverse incident report prescribed in this part or through an investigation, has reasonable belief that conduct by a staff member or employee of a licensed facility is grounds for disciplinary action by the appropriate board, the agency shall report this fact to such regulatory board. The adverse incident reports and preliminary adverse incident reports required under this section are confidential as provided by law and are not discoverable or admissible in any civil or administrative action. So let's just go over that one more time. Okay, what is adverse and what is not adverse? So an event over which facility personnel could exercise control rather than the result of the resident's condition and results in death, brain or spinal damage, permanent disfigurement, fracture or dislocation of bones or joints, any condition that required medical attention to which the resident has not given his or her consent, including failure to honor advance directives. Number 6, any condition that requires the transfer of the resident from a facility the facility to a unit providing more acute care, and an event that is reported to law enforcement. So B, so you have A, B, and A and B. And B is resident elopement. If the elopement put the resident in risk of harm or injury. Okay, so if it is adverse, if it fits into one of these descriptions, and a lot of incidents that happen don't fit into this. They don't, because an event where facility personnel could exercise control rather than as a result of the resident's condition. Somebody just falling normally is probably part of their condition. But I would check, an incident happens, take the facts, go to your management, go to your supervisor, determine whether it's an adverse incident or if it's a regular incident. And if it's a regular incident, then we're going to show you how to complete an incident report, and your facility may have a different incident report as well, so check with them. And let's go on to the next section. So if it is not an adverse incident, okay, then we're going to use a form that looks similar to this. And you're going to fill in, you've got the name of the resident involved in the incident, date of birth, sex. Was it a resident or staff injury? So most of them will check off here. Was there death, assault, fire, natural disaster, missing, resident missing? You'll fill out the location, the date, the time, a brief description. Now, if you don't have enough room, of course, you could flip it over, put more information on the back. And then you're going to select one of the options here, circle or mark the area where the injury happened. You can put other, emergency treatment given, and then witnesses, employees involved, phone numbers, treated by the physician, yes or no, if yes, who, hospital admission, if yes, where, employees involved, number of employees, date of admission. And then who was it prepared by? It doesn't have to be prepared by the person who's witnessed it. It could be a witness who's reporting to your manager. Manager goes ahead and completes it based on that witness information. Signs, dates, times. And then you have to keep this in your file with all of your incident reports. Now, this is not a adverse incident. This is a regular incident. You could still use this for all of your incidents so that you have a report. And so find out where your incident reports are, look it over. Let me just show you what one looks like when it's completed. You'll have, in this incident, the resident fell out of bed in the middle of the night. So Jane Doe is the resident, date of birth, her sex, her location of the incident, date, time, it happened at 5 a.m. for example. I found the resident on the floor. She had a cut on her leg. So we go ahead and mark laceration and abrasion. Emergency treatment, called 911. Witnesses, employees involved, and hospital, date of admission, healthcare provider. Now, this is where it asks you, who did you notify about the situation? This is where you'll get in a lot of trouble. Notify people. Healthcare provider, representative, whoever it is, mark it down. Do it immediately, as soon as you possibly can. Move. So some of the things that you can do to prepare to, what have you done to prevent this from reoccurring? So you would go ahead and put this, like moved her walker closer to a bed, or put in grab bars, or whatever it is that you did to try to prevent it from happening again. Sign and date, and that's what an incident report looks like. Thank you. And so if it is an adverse incident, we have a video on that next, okay?